Hi everyone, my name is Cormac, so I'm going to give you guys some commentary on a 25 Atal Dazar we tested last week with the affixes Grievous, Sanguine, and Fortified. So to give you kind of preface to this dungeon, there were a lot of mistakes this dungeon. It was pretty papega, but I think that all these mistakes and how you recover them is kind of a good teaching lesson for you guys. Atal Dazar is a dungeon that I think requires a lot of group coordination. And this group of people, I've played with all individually in different groups, but I've never played with this group of people all together. And it's going to kind of show here because we don't really know whose role is whose. And we have to try and kind of adapt to it throughout. So first thing, so when you get into this pack, so you want to have someone standing on a snap spot so that the Juggernauts do not charge. So the Juggernauts usually charge whoever is like the farthest player that's also within like 40 yards of them. And then they do the spin, and the spin AoE, and then at a certain key level, that thing starts to one-shot. You can dodge it while you're at range, however, it's much easier if the Juggernauts just don't charge. So normally everybody else stands in melee, and then you have your range go into a snap spot. There's one back here, which people don't really use anymore, but there are a few over here, so there's one here, or anywhere up on these kind of like railings, or if you get up on the top here. So what happened is when we started this poll, the hunter expected me to go into the snap spot so he could blood, and I expected him to go up into the snap spot so that I could wave the crane. And we both got in and realized one of us needs to go do it. So he blooded, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna blood, and then I'm gonna get in the snap spot. However, he's down here on this like golden dais here, which isn't actually a snap spot. Up here is. He did try to disengage. I'm not sure if he was trying to reach for up here, but since he's here, the Juggernauts are still gonna charge. At the same time, our rogue missed a kick or kicked the wrong thing, and so we're also gonna have one Somni's mantle go off, and this bull is gonna get into a bit of a clown fiesta. So that one Somni's mantle is gonna go off. My hunter is dead. So when that happens, if the person in the snap spot dies, you want to make sure that either you get in the snap spot or you get out in range. What I really should have done, looking back at it, is try and get in the snap spot, but it also would have been harder for me to dodge the charges because they were about to go out at that moment. So while you're at range, you can, for the most part, easily dodge the Juggernauts if you're watching and you know the timer. You can also try and stop them before they charge out. Oh, but yeah, it's really important that before you go into this poll that you decide who's going to the snap spot, who's interrupting what, gouging what, all that kind of stuff, so that your poll doesn't end up looking like this. Other than that, as a healer, yeah, I didn't quite get far enough from that charge. In this poll, you just want to make sure that you're hesitating before you go into this pack, making sure your tank has enough aggro. Otherwise, those auto guards they fervent strike the closest target, not even the aggro target. So if you go in before all the mobs are like standing still and on top of the tank, they could easily just turn around and fervent strike you, and that's a one shot. So somehow we managed to kill this 6-pack, and then now, oh yeah, this is also where I realized I didn't have any end scrolls because I'm used to having a mage in the group. So we're gonna snap the tentacles from the blob. So snapping the tentacles from the blob this week is a little bit risky with Sanguine. However, we seem to get a pretty good snap where they're all far enough from each other that we can cleave them, but when they drop Sanguine, they aren't going to Sanguine heal each other a lot. You might be able to actually just pixel stack them more easily if you have like a mage that's combusting and the ignite spreads really well, but that's also a bit more risky than just doing it like that. Okay, so next we're just gonna drag the blob up. This part is really boring, so I'm gonna skip it. Okay, so next we're gonna drop this and we're getting it for the next poll. So we get to this poll and we're talking about how we want to do this because we want to make sure that we're getting the month buff on the mobs, but also I want my hunter to be able to go in and blood. So what we decide is that the hunter's gonna start out standing out, and then I'm going to hit all the mobs, but I'm gonna have my transcendence set up in the snap spot so the Juggernauts don't charge. So to get to the snap spot, you just go to like this lip here and you just walk straight across it. And then basically as soon as you're like right here, like you're past this like fire or like right next to it, you're basically on the snap spot and the Juggernauts won't charge as long as you're standing here and nobody else is out of melee. So I'm going to set my Transcendence down here. My Hunter's going to stand out a bit. My tank's going to get that thing up, and again, I'm going to wait before I get in and debuff things. The Priestess I'm not too scared about. I was just making sure the other mobs were safe, and then I'm going to Transcend back, and then my Hunter's going to go in and stand in melee so that he can blood and get all this damage out. As much as I want to be in there doing Way of the Crane, you as a healer are never going to get to do as much damage as a hunter with blood the enemy does. So it's much better that you just stand out for things like this. As far as killing this pack goes, it's basically the same as the first, except the only difference is the priest. So when you have mobs with on-death affixes, or mostly just like with sanguine and with bolstering with these priests, you don't want to go into the blood with that transfusion until the other mobs are dead, because otherwise the priests are just immediately going to drop blood and heal everything and make you have to move. And moving with these mobs and kiting them is really dangerous because of the fervent strikes. You can just wait until they transfuse. Even if they're standing in sanguine, they'll still die through it. Same thing with bolstering. You can leave the priest up like until the very end, and it'll only take like one tick of the transfuse into blood for them to die, because it scales with bolstering as well. But it just scales with key level, so even if the priests are standing in like 3 pools of sanguine, they're probably still going to die just from a couple ticks of the transfusion. Okay, so next we're on to Priestess Alunza. So make sure you're using your Transcend you call it before. So we're going to trap the first one. I'm going to pair the second one. So we have that set up, who is going to be CC'ing. And then as soon as the Molten Gold debuff goes out, make sure that you're dispelling it. You're going to see I get it right here. So I'm going to diffuse it. So when I diffuse it, it is going to go back on the boss, and it is going to do damage to the boss. So this is good. However, this boss isn't really a damage check because she kills herself. So if you decide instead of diffusing that dot, you want to save your diffuse for this transfusion, because this does hurt, especially on a week like this, like with Grievous. If you decide you want to save it for that, there's nothing wrong with that, because you probably aren't going to skip a transfusion just based on you diffusing the dot back. If it's like kind of close, you might actually end up saving your group a couple seconds, but it's really up to you if you just want to go for that safety play instead. So yeah, other than that, just make sure that you're instantly displaying the Molten Gold. This group likes to put down markers to say what blood they're going to go to. Some people just say like the one behind me, the one I'm next to, things like that. But it's good that you try and communicate so that you make sure everyone gets a blood and you're not joking each other. And make sure you're setting up CDs and stuff like that for that transfusion the higher the key gets, because it does a sleeper amount of damage and it will start to sneak up on you when you aren't used to it. So yeah, other than that, I'm just going to skip the rest of this boss fight. We're just get another transfusion, she's going to die. Okay. So, oops. So my rogue is dead. So he decided to go ahead because he wanted to go and pull the lever to like set up for this group. So my rogue is dead, so I'm just going to res him. And then we're going to go into this 4-pack. There's something really exciting going on here. These mobs are the same mobs that we've dealt with. Again, just make sure that your tank is getting aggro before you get in there. And as long as everyone is standing in melee, these augurs aren't really going to cast wildfire anymore, so you don't really have to worry about kicks. I'm just going to skip this part as well. So next we're going to gear up to do the swords, and we're going to do the 2 Sky Screamers. Another common strategy, which we also did later this week, but we didn't do with this group, is to actually shroud this 4-pack, snap all the swords, and then get the Sky Screamer and like one of the other Sky Screamers and pull it into this 4-pack. But that's not what we did here. So our tank is going to snap the 2 swords and this Sky Screamer onto this dais, and he's going to make a mistake. As you can see, he just judgmented this Sky Screamer up here, and it's going to jump down. So this Sky Screamer will only snap. It really doesn't really snap, he just like jumps down to this spot. And he won't, the Sky Screamer won't snap to any of the other snap points in the dungeon, including like all these other ones. So if you try and tricks it, he won't snap. The other bad thing about this, about bringing him down onto the snap point, is that he also won't snap off. So all the swords are obviously going to die before the Sky Screamers, and then normally you would just jump off the snap point and the Sky Screamers would jump with the tank and they wouldn't really get any sanguine healing. But the Sky Screamer is instead probably just going to bug out here and just get fully sanguine healed. Also, you see our Demon Hunter I-Beam jumps off an accident, and he's going to have to run back around to get back to us. So this pull is gonna get a little bit messy. I know that as soon as you pull those swords, you want to get in there and do as much pad damage as possible, but as you saw, I waited a long time before I went in there to spinning crane kick, because normally on the sword pulls, swords do so much tank damage that I normally, especially on pull, just want to sit there and pump my tank. Except if your tank dies and those swords snap off, you're just instantly gonna wipe. But yeah, as soon as you feel comfortable, you can go in there and debuff them for your group. So yeah, so we're just gonna kill the Sky Screamer. The other Sky Screamer I think is still bugged out back here. He's not gonna want to move, and obviously we're not gonna jump on that Sanguine to try and get him. Looks like he eventually decided to hop off though, and we're just gonna single target him down. And it looks like our demon hunter's back. So after we do these skyscrapers, we usually jump down and do Razan. So I'm gonna go ahead and skip to that. Okay, so these two skyscrapers are the ones that are up here. So as you see, so just to kind of orient you guys know where we are in the room. So this is the entrance to the dungeon if we're looking up here at the minimap. So normally when you go in the entrance and you start the key and you go down Razan, you go up here to the right side. We're on the other side. We're down here on the left side. And there's a reason most pugs and most groups will not tank Razan over here. And it's because some of the walls in here on this side of the room that look exactly the same as the other side of the room actually don't work to line the fear. The only way you can line the fear on this side of the room is these stairs right here. You can't use these pillars that you normally use on the other side. And these stairs are a bit harder to line on because of how narrow they are. So, yeah. It's a bit riskier to do it over here, but it is really nice if you can get the two skyscrapers and cleave them down with Razan. It's really efficient to do it this way. So yeah, so my take is the serrated teeth is increased physical damage, so with those skyscrapers it's dangerous. Usually the first fear I always like to revival. So you can go and hide yourself, and then when everybody else gets feared, you can revival. Revival does go through LOS, and that just dispels the fear from everyone, and your team will love you for it if you do that every time. So try and always make sure that you're saving revival for that. So as far as the serrated teeth go, so if you are doing Razan and every single time he does a pursuit you're kiting it, you'll almost always have Thunder Focus tee up for every serrated teeth, which means you can get that extra mastery or crit or whichever thing you want in order to pump your tank with healing. However, if on pursuits you're having like your Hunter Fang, your Rogue Vanish, things like that, then you're not gonna have Thunder Focus tee for everyone, and you want to make sure that, like, say like your tank is saying like, oh, I have wall for this one or something, maybe don't use your Thunder Focus tee on that one and save it for the next one when they're gonna be a bit more dry, if your group is planning on using those dodges for the pursuit. Yeah, I keep getting unlucky here and I keep getting the pursuit. I also maybe should have actually been setting a melee, looking back at this now, so that the Rogue and Hunter could do it. So yeah, as far as these stairs go, make sure when, like, if your tank isn't used to tanking him over here, he's tanking him far from the stairs. Because yeah, you see, the reason I went on this side, so if you go on this side, the problem is and you get picked for pursuit, the problem is you're gonna have to kite him this way, which brings up the chance of getting raptors. However, I chose not to go on the other side because I saw where Razan was and I saw it's gonna be harder to line on the other side, and I want to make sure that I'm not getting feared, so I can dispel whoever gets feared. Like I said, these stairs are kind of hard to line with. It's also really hard if your tank is tanking Razan closer to the stairs, because sometimes even if you're lining, if you're still in Razan's hitbox, like the red outline around him, it'll still fear you. I'm not sure what happened over here, but it's, like I said, it's much harder to line on these stairs than it is the other side, and sometimes even when you are 100% sure that you're not going to get feared, you still do. So yeah, so I'm on this side, so I have to kite Razan this way. It's pretty easy if you know how not to get the raptors this way. Something else to note, so say you kite Razan over here, and you don't want to have to run back. My tank is going to taunt Razan to run back. You can actually use right here as a line spot as well, if you want to do that. I've seen groups do that before. That's not something that I usually do. Yeah, it's usually okay that you run Razan back this way, and you keep him over here, because when you're done with Razan, you're going to go up these stairs. You don't want to go up the other stairs where the swords are. So I'm just going to heal him through his serrated teeth. So the rest of this fight, pretty standard. No surprise that I got feared there because I was still in the hitbox, like I just talked about. If I get picked for pursuit here, I'm definitely dead, but I got really lucky and it picked petals. So we are saved. Alright, so we kill Razan. And next we're going to set up to do these 3 sword packs. There's a few spots that you can snap these swords. So I'm going to wait here. You can just hug the wall and get up here if you want. So my tank, he's going to try to jump and he's going to miss. But he's going to come back up. So you can either snap the swords like on these daises, which you've normally seen, but there's another snap point up here that's pretty useful if you want to dodge sanguine healing. It's right here or right here. There's also another spot somewhere on the stairs, which I'm not too familiar with. But if you kill the swords here, the sanguine like drops up here somehow. It's a weird bug, but basically none of them will get any healing. The problem with using these spots though is that your rogue can't tricks all 3. And so your tank has to like tag the lower ones and then like run up make it here while, and then like once he snaps these once, then your rogue can like snap these other two. It's a bit more complicated, and if you have a DPS like a demon hunter is capable of just even cleaving them, so it's not, so sanguine's not really going to be a factor. Most groups will opt to just still use these regular snap spots because they're safer, and most groups have more practice with them. I just wanted to bring these up as an option if you don't have a sword killer. So, yep, so it's gonna tricks the bottom swords. You can pull this sword pack right here without pulling the Sky Screamer as well if you tag the sword that's like the furthest away in just that one. However, we do have this sword in our route for count, so we do end up pulling it. Or sorry, the Sky Screamer. So we're just gonna finish killing the Sky Screamer, and then we're going to do the middle obelisk. So normally when you do the middle obelisk, you don't kill the middle pack, you instead have your rogue pull away. So even though we're coming from this side, we decide that we're gonna go over here while our rogue pulls away. That way when our rogue pulls away, he can pull towards the entrance, and he's going towards where we did the blob obelisk, so that he can get inside the blob obelisk entrance and come help us kill this obelisk. Because he's obviously not going to be able to take this entrance. So yes, we're gonna kill Urgoth. I believe our tank dies here. Yeah, so our tank, he gets a Spirit Breaker and he thinks he has like a DR, so we thought he could live the Dark Fury, but he couldn't. So it's always important to be ready for these moments with a Speed Pot and a Taunt, so that your DPS can still keep DPSing and you don't lose a lot of time from your tank dying when these kinds of things happen. I'm just gonna taunt this guy. Make sure you're taunting on CD when this kind of thing happens, so that your Demon Hunter especially, because that guy produces a lot of threat, doesn't pull threat off of you, and can keep DPSing. And then our Paladin's gonna get back, and we're gonna finish off killing Urgoth here. So after Urgoth, we're going to gear up to do the pull on the right side with the Honor Guard, the Shadow Stalker on the stairs, the two Shadow Stalkers that are like also hidden on the next set of stairs by the obelisk, and then the two shield bearers. So this pack is really scary because all of these mobs have anti-tank mechanics and they also hurt. So shield bashes from the shield bearers will go on the closest target. The poison application from the Shadow Blade Stalkers will also go on the closest target, and then the reanimated Honor Guard does a bleed that will also just go on the closest target. So if you try to kite and you have a rogue with parry, you can for a little while, but other than that, it's really scary because your DPS are just going to end up dying inside of your tank. And this pack also does a lot of damage with the Honor Guard because of the spit right here. So normally I can just wave the crane and wave the crane through it. I'm usually used to, by the time I wave the crane is over, the Honor Guard being dead because you have a mage with combust, but this pack lives a lot longer than I'm used to for sure. And those shield bearers end up coming in a lot later. You can interrupt those shield bearers' shield with leg sweep if they're synced, or you can also just end cap one. So the shield bearer, the Honor Guard goes down first, and then yeah. So you see our rogue right here. Our rogue has parry, our Demon Hunter has nethered, and our Paladin tank has horseyed away. But when he horseyed away, he jumped. So as you see, these mobs, they're actually floating in the air. They have snapped into mid-air. There's apparently a snap spot in the air over here, but really, if your tank, especially if you have like a Demon Hunter, this is a common thing. They will just snap up in the air. And this happens with Obelisk all the time. So when they stop in the air, you can easily remedy this if you go and stand directly underneath the mobs so that they can hit your tank. Once they're able to hit your tank, they'll unsnap. However, what happened was our tank was like, he was running because he was scared, so he didn't want to get back in because he knew as soon as he did, he was going to die, so he kind of waited a little bit. I'm not sure if he waited too long, or if they probably would have just reset anyways, because, man, these spaghetti code. So all the mobs are just resetting. So I think we had a Shadow Stalker and a Shield Bearer reset, but these two ended up unsnapping. So we're gonna have to kill the Shield Bearer from full, and we're gonna get a Shadow Stalker, and we're gonna have to kill that from full as well, unfortunately. Like I said, this run was pretty papega. Yeah, we'll CPS these down, and then we're going to do the Fear Obelisk. So there are a couple ways you can get to this Fear Obelisk without having to kill this Honor Guard pack. One way we commonly do is we usually just Ring of Peace it, and then I paralysis the Honor Guard. So I paralysis the Honor Guard, And if we have like a hunter, then they'll trap the shield bearer. But you actually don't even need the trap. You could actually just para and ring and get in. It's also even safer if you have the trap though, or if you have a distract. Even if you have like a druid who has mass root, that also works really well with ring. But we just decided that we're gonna just have the rogue activate it, and the rest of us are gonna go inside the other portal. The rogue could also do it without the ring by just using distract, but the ring is just some extra safety for him. So I'm gonna ring it. I decided I'm just gonna go back to the other portal for some reason instead of going in that portal with him. I think it was just a bit safer. So again, this is something else you want to save your revival for, is for the Samrex, so you can dispel the fear as soon as you get inside. My rogue didn't hear the call and he's still cloaked, but that's okay. So our tank is getting a lot of stacks here. I'm pretty sure he ends up dying here too. Yeah, so he almost resets and then he gets 10 stacks and then I get the fear, so I go to dispel myself, and then the global takes me to dispel myself, he dies. It's really unfortunate. So I think, yeah, our Demon Hunter has threat right now, so I'm probably gonna taunt soon if I can. After I top them. Yes, I'm going to taunt. I'm gonna see that he's on me. I'm gonna speed taunt away, and then I think I'm not sure if our Demon Hunter. He pulled threat again, but he nethered, so it's okay. And then our tank is actually back in the obelisk now, so we're just gonna pull Samrek to Vokal. So another thing that groups commonly do when they get in Samrek is they actually take it towards the spider obelisk, and they'll do something similar with like Ring of Peace or having a rogue pull away or a hunter pull away so they can activate the spider obelisk. I do think that the blob obelisk with last boss is much safer than the spider obelisk with last boss because of the kicks, but because we have a paladin tank, we're actually not scared of the spider obelisk at all because paladins have so many kicks. So we're just gonna kill Samrek, and then we're gonna get into Vokal. Vokal can be a pretty scary fight on Grievous, especially on your mana. Okay, so once again, usually the first thing I usually like to pop Way and Mana Tea on pull, that way I know that I'm gonna get another use of Mana Tea. As soon as that noxious stench is going out, you want to try and decide to dispel one person. We have 2 dispels in my group. So I think Paladin and I are going to be fighting for dispels on usually like the Hunter and Rogue, who are the people that we're most scared of. You also want to make sure that you're going around and debuffing all of these totems, which I'm actually not even sure that I remember to do here looking back at this. Make sure that you are actually taking the time to go and Crackling Jade Lightning all the totems for your physical debuff friends. Or your physical damage friends. So we're going to push these totems slowly and then get into the next phase. So during this phase, it's kind of hard to move with the melee if you aren't used to it. So for the puddles, you also want to make sure that you're not like baiting the puddles like right in front of your tank. But if you can, you want to make sure that of course you're in melee, helping do DPS and stuff like that if you have the globals to spare. So your rogue, so as soon as it goes out, I dispel the hunter. So the rogue can immune the first application of damage, but they can't actually immune like the disease itself. But the paladin tank actually did end up dispelling him. So even though he would normally take down after he cloaks the initial part of damage, since he got dispelled, he's not going to take down. I'm going to dispel the hunter and then kind of work on healing everyone else. So I actually fall a bit behind because I'm actually trying to save some of my CDs for the next Noxious Stench, and the Paladin is taking a lot of damage, so I'm just focusing on him. So something kind of weird happens, and I don't know how to explain it, but I'll try and see if I can catch it and show it to you guys what happens. So right as this Noxious Stench is going out, I cocoon my hunter, but as you see, he dies. So what actually happened, and you can see it right here. So this is his pet companion, his animal companion. Its name is Bert. As you can see, it just got a 500k absorb from my cocoon. So there was some weird interaction where I cocooned him either too late or right as he was dying or something like that. So it still ate my cocoon CD, and it went on the animal companion, who of course just disappears a second later. I went back and watched the stream. Like as soon as he died, he had this like huge lag spike. I don't know how to explain what happened. I'm really curious how that could happen because obviously I did not cast cocoon on his pet, but it's very funny. Yeah, but I got a bit behind on healing there because our tank was taking a lot of damage, and I just focused on him. I was just like, oh, I'll just cocoon the hunter, and maybe if I cocooned him like a second earlier or something, that wouldn't have happened. But we're just gonna res him and get him up. He also told me after that he apparently didn't, because he still, the other thing was like he still had all of his defensives up. He said he didn't know that the first the initial dot application of Noxious Stench does damage, which actually does a lot of damage. And that's why he didn't press like any of his defensives before that happened. So all around, a lesson learned for everyone. But yeah, other than that, so normally I will weigh one, and then you can revival one, and then the ones between that you kind of have to do a bit more healing, and maybe those are the ones you call for defensives. Like as I get more comfortable with my DPS, I would tell my rogue to cloak a later one instead, or maybe nether this one, things like that, to help out with this boss. It's also a lot easier if you have like, I shouldn't say it's a lot easier. It is a little bit easier when you have two ranged, because then they're not in melee as much, and our hunter is kind of staying with us in melee. Because then you yourself don't have to do as much, but it's also kind of harder when there's two range because those classes are generally much squishier than like a demon hunter. Yeah, so we're just gonna finish full call here, and then we're going to shroud out. If you're playing with a no rogue comp, it's also really good if you do the spider obelisk, because then you can actually set it up so you can take this obelisk out to the obelisk you dropped out here, so you actually don't need the shroud to get in and out of this room or to have someone pull away and die. Okay, so next we're gonna set for this pull. Normally when you do this pull, you want to CC one of those witch doctors. We do have lust. I think we decide to just YOLO it and just pull it all. And also we have the extra kicks from the paladin tank. But I think most of the time, even with lust, you should decide to CC one of the witch doctors, because between the venom blasts and the hexes, especially since we don't have a curse dispel, this pull can get really out of hand really fast. Yeah, there's nothing too crazy to watch. Just make sure you're watching those witch doctors, seeing who they're casting on, especially if they're going to double cast on someone. Maybe try and cocoon that person. And dispelling the poison from the stalkers. When your tank jumps down, if they break out the stalkers, being they're the first one to do damage to it, then the Shadowblade stalkers won't stun them. But if the stalkers are the first one to do damage to your tank, then they will stun them out of it. Your tank can use a Draining Living Action Potion to be free of this stun. However, it's just better if they just like as soon as they go down, like either they know where the stalkers are, if you don't have a demon hunter or a hunter to help you break them out, then they're just sitting in the middle of the stairs like AoEing, so that they're the first one to deal damage to them. Yeah, so we pulled these swords a little bit late, so I'm not sure they're gonna get even cleaved exactly here. We might have some sanguine healing. But this is again another snap spot you can use. Okay, it looks like they mostly died evenly. There's a couple there. Normally, if you have some swords that are living when you jump off, it's a really good idea to just put a ring down on your group, because then the swords can't jump on you. So yeah, we're just gonna finish cleaving down these Sky Screamers. I think I decide here that I want to, yeah. So I decided I want to go ahead while they're killing the Sky Screamers and start the RP for my group, so that when they get here, we don't have to wait for the wall to come down. And then I'm gonna run back since my DPS just isn't that important. Okay, so I'm gonna skip this part and we're gonna pull Yasma. So again, with Yasma, we have the spider obelisk. This is really, I would not advise pulling the spider obelisk with Yasma with the last boss, especially if you have two ranged, because you're going to run out of kicks unless you get really lucky with who the, like especially if you have like a warrior tank who can reflect. You can get really lucky with that mob choosing to always target your tank, so you can always fall reflect, but you can also get really unlucky. You can go on people that don't have like defensives or immunities. So as far as Yasma goes, we always want to make sure we're dropping our ads as a group, and because you have Ring of Peace, it's normally a really good idea to drop the ads like really close, like as you see we're gonna do here, and then I could ring if they get too close. That way my rogue can also blade flurry off these two. Most groups aren't really that comfortable doing this, because it's really scary if the ads are getting close to Yasma. yeah, so we're just gonna kill those. And then basically kite around. Is really important if you have range in your group that they try and stay with melee. That way all the spiders stay grouped and they're always staying behind. You always want to be dropping the ads in front of Yasma, not behind her. So like on an upcoming corner, not a corner that's behind. That way you have lots of room between you and the spiders. And that if you have a ranged DPS or someone with like a ranged kick, that they're always watching to interrupt Yasma in case your tank can't get in there because the spiders and interrupt. Yeah, basically for the ads, you can ring a piece every other, and then you can leg sweep every third. You could also end cap, though that's probably just gonna get broken by damage. But this fight as itself is not a big healing fight. If you get to like a really high tyrannical key, it will go to the point where Soul Rend might start one-shotting your DPS. Avoidance isn't really going to help with this. I think when we did like a 27 this week, we tried it. Some of our DPS actually just put on Stam Flasks so they could live that initial dot. The ads themselves, while they're still active, they do a tiny bit of ticking damage, but that can be enough right after that first initial Soul Rend hit in order for your DPS to die as well. So you gotta look out for that. But other than that, this is a pretty simple fight, albeit long and annoying. Okay, if you guys have any more questions about Atal Dazar, I'd be happy to answer them inside of my stream. As well, if you aren't familiar with it, I've also made a whole spreadsheet detailing the like Azerite essences and gear setups I like in every dungeon, and I'm also going to link that below the YouTube video and go back and add it to my other YouTube videos if you guys are interested in that. Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you found this helpful.